Good morning, everybody. It is 8:30 on a Friday morning. We're down here in Orange County. It's beautiful outside, and we're in here, and we're learning today. Yay! How exciting.
Like many of you here, we've experienced the changes that technology has brought to this industry. Right along with you, we've moved from mainframe systems to PCs, from fax to email to paperless and digital files. And we've learned a whole new vocabulary: encryption, cybersecurity, multi-factor authentication. And through all of this, we know that it's really a people business. It's relationships. It's what you bring to the table. It's your experience, your talent, your personalities that really make this industry. And you may be familiar with one of my favorite RBJ taglines: escrow is your business and making it easier is ours. Easier for you to have time to build those relationships, to engage with your clients, to keep that personal touch, to do what you do best. So please welcome our speaker.
All right. Good morning, everybody. All right, first thing, first day. Woohoo, let's get going. So when I told my wife I was coming to do this, she said, remember the great qualities of a speaker is to be a good listener. So I've got my ears on. I'll take them off here in a moment. But welcome to Disneyland. If any of you are going, you will have the opportunity to win these later in my presentation. So, all right. My name is Zach Mesel. I own a company called Wooden Spoon Managed IT Services, because Wooden Spoon and IT go together clearly. I'm based in Santa Rosa, about 50 miles north of San Francisco. One of the things that I deal with a lot is cybersecurity. And so what my aim today is to give you some information, not detailed technical information, I promise you, but to give you information about cybersecurity, to ideally raise your awareness and understand why the things that are happening today are happening with respect to IT in your respective businesses. So hopefully, try to keep it light, try to keep it accessible. There's going to be some interactive portion of this, so be prepared. But first, I would like to say thank you. First of all, to Rebecca Dingler, who was just up here a few moments ago, who extended the invitation to come speak. And to the folks at CEA, Jennifer Blevins and Stephanie Shane, who were of great assistance to me in getting ready for the presentation. And also to Sharon Strallendorf from Old Republic Title. I am not a title and escrow industry expert. My expertise is in IT and in cybersecurity. So one of the things that I wanted to do before the presentation is to get a better feel for what kinds of things would be important to you and how to address you today. And so Sharon was extremely helpful in doing that, as was another speaker who I'll mention here momentarily. All right, who am I? I don't have a bunch of letters after my name. I'm not a governmental official or a law enforcement official. I don't have advanced degrees in cybersecurity or in computer science. But what I do have is 20 years of experience dealing with small businesses. And when I say small, my largest client is about 215 people. So my assumption is, and we'll get to this in a moment, that there are companies in this room that are smaller, companies in this room that are larger than that. So I've got a pretty broad range of experience, and I've been doing this for a long time. I've been in the industry, oh gosh, I almost hate to say this, since 1986, which is coming up on 40 years. That is completely impossible. So I've seen a couple things happen, and I've been around since before the internet age, truly, when it was still the forebearer developed by the Department of Defense. And so I've actually been doing email since 1988. That's kind of exciting. But I've been doing this since before the days of MySpace and AOL and all of that. And so I've seen the transition into everything, things being not super connected to things being hyper connected, and helping business owners navigate the kinds of things that they need to be concerned about when they set these things up in their business, right? And they have their employees using them at home. Egads. All of that is to say, I've been in the trenches, so I've had some experience doing this stuff. My intention today, again, this is really an adventure about education and raising awareness around cybersecurity. I am not going to try to get you guys to be experts. I'm not going to try to get you guys to be certified. But what I am going to ask you guys is to have an open mind and to think about the things that I'm going to talk about today and how they're going to relate to your everyday work. Because, as you guys are, I'm assuming, are mostly aware, cybersecurity is everybody's responsibility. It's not just IT's. And whether you work in a company where IT is outsourced, like the majority of my clients do, or whether you have an IT department inside your company, they're dealing with very, very similar issues. And it may seem like we're trying to make your job more difficult, but we're not. I mean, we are trying to make your job more difficult only in the service of making things more secure, which is not a story I'm assuming you'd like to hear. But hopefully I can give some context to that and help you understand why some of these things are happening, and then what you can do to make sure that you're doing your part. The second part of this really is about inspiring action. And I'm not talking about massive action, I'm talking about baby steps, okay? So we'll as I go through my presentation, there are going to be some recommendations, and even if you only take one or two and make a little bit of progress down what I call the security journey or the security continuum, that's still progress that you wouldn't have made otherwise. And ideally, you will have taken a small step to making everything more secure, everybody in your organization more secure, and your clients more secure. All right, so today's topics. IT, they just prevent me from getting my work done, right? Does IT really help prevent fraud? The teaser topic at the end, toward the end of the presentation, is AI, friend or foe? We'll talk a little bit about AI, and then my intention is that is going to last about 60 minutes, and hopefully at least some of you will still be awake by that time. And after that, we're going to do 30 minutes of Q&A time, approximately. And I'll take you through that. So there'll be plenty of time, ideally for Q&A. If you have additional questions after that, I will give you instructions on how to continue the conversation. All right, what am I not going to talk about today? I am absolutely, positively not going to talk about the law. I'm not a lawyer, I do not give legal advice, so if I am getting anywhere close to the law, I'm speaking that it exists. I'm not giving any kind of advice on how to deal with it. There are some very, very, very capable lawyers who are going to be speaking. Jennifer Felton and Steve Garcia will be speaking today at 1:45 p.m., I believe, in this room. And then tomorrow morning, there's an attorney panel first thing in this room. So if you have legal questions, please ask Jennifer, Steve, or the panel in the morning. The other thing that I'm not going to talk about today is compliance as it applies to anything with the exception of IT. Because I am not an expert in your industry. I'm assuming that you guys are. And I'm really curious to hear what questions come up. Given your knowledge of the industry, given your specific knowledge of the industry, what questions come up during the Q&A session that relate back to IT? I will do my best to answer those for you. Okay, a quick disclaimer. I'm going to mention a couple of vendors today. I'm going to mention some insurance companies and some software companies, and that is not meant to be an endorsement. It is simply ideally to make the presentation a little bit more relatable for you. And then the other comment here is whatever I say here very well could be obsolete by 10 o'clock, right? This industry changes so quickly, both from the software manufacturer side to the people who are trying to disrupt Things are literally changing daily. So I'm going to do a little bit of crying in my beer at some point in this conversation. I expect a little bit of empathy, please. A little bit of understanding, that would be nice. Okay, a couple of requests. Number one, please hold your questions until the Q&A session. If you have a question, jot it down. We're going to write all the questions up on an easel, and then I'm going to pick the ones that I want to answer that I think that I can. And then if I run out of time in this room, I will be in the foyer or in the lobby until about noon today. So feel free to come up and have some conversations as you wish. All right, please get out your smartphones. I know they just told you to silence them and turn them off and put them away. If you could get them out, this would be super helpful. Scan the QR code, and there is a 150 question survey that should take no longer than 30 minutes to fill out. I'm just kidding. It's 10 questions, and it will help me understand who's in the room this morning. I have my suspicions, but this will be super helpful. So the reason that I want to know who's in the room is because I suspect that we have a variety of different people from a variety of different types of companies. My understanding is that Northern California and Southern California do their title and escrow just a little bit differently, that the structure of the company is a little different. I suspect we have some notaries in the room. And we might even have some people from regulatory bodies in the room. So I just kind of want to see, and also kind of given the size of the companies, I'd like to see where we are. Mainly so that I can tailor the presentation the best I can. Make sure that I'm addressing the kinds of issues that are going to be important to you. And with any luck, this will actually work. Let's do it the old-fashioned way. How many of you are here from escrow and title companies? How many of you here are not from escrow and title companies? Quick show of hands. Notaries? Any notaries in the room? Outstanding. Any vendors to the title and escrow industry? Dare I ask, are there any lawyers in the room? Okay, fair enough. The other question I want to know is there anybody from escrow and title who has fewer than 5,000 customer records, or that you suspect you have fewer than 5,000 customer records? So, okay, a couple. I'll get into the reason why that's important. Business owners, raise your hands, please. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Are you who is in the operations part of escrow and title? Abstractors, escrow officers, title officers, all that. Okay, great. Admin, HR, not operations, but in HR capacity. Okay, great. Anybody in IT? Do you have any IT people in the room? Voluntold to do IT, fantastic. She knows about computers. She can be in IT, it's great. All right, fair enough. IT, they're just preventing me from getting my work done, right? That's our aim. We just want to make you less efficient. No, we don't. We want to make you more secure. We want to make the company more secure. We want to make the clients more secure. And it's a bit of a lift. I want to define some terms. When I say IT, I'm not talking about every little bit of technology. For example, I don't do AV like these guys in the back do, right? It's a part of IT, but it's not something that I'm talking about today. Today, I'm really talking about devices, computers. I call these lovely devices nerd bricks because they used to be gigantic and we wear them on our sides. So devices, networks, like the wireless network that many of you are connected to right now and that I know that I am, the networks at our offices, at our homes, at Starbucks and McDonald's and all the other wonderful places that give you free Wi-Fi. And I'm talking about data. I'm talking about your company's data, especially HR data. It's fun. And I'm also talking about the client's data that you are responsible for. Okay? So what am I not talking about? From my perspective, I'm not talking about the actual applications that you guys do to complete your workflows. Okay? And you guys know these apps way better than I do. This is a sampling, SoftPro 360 or Property Shark or DataTree or Adaptive or EasyDoc 123. Companies like mine typically know how to install them. It starts up, it doesn't crash, you guys can get into them, done. Right? That's about where our line of responsibility stops. There are, I'm sure, some specialized IT groups, whether they're internal to businesses or external, that do have some specialization in that. Most IT companies will not, right? We're dealing with companies across a broad spectrum of industries, so we have to stick to what we have our expertise in, and that's the devices, the networks, and the data. So just something to keep in mind, and I'll keep on referring back to that. So I'd like to cast today's IT threats, in a completely non-technical way, just to give a little bit of an idea of what we're facing. And this is the whining, crying in my soup, crying in my beer. So bear with me for just a moment. This is the IT is hard. Okay, so today's threats. It's kind of like a burglar casing a house. This is one type of threat, where burglars, what they're trying to do is they're trying to understand when you're coming and going. They want to know where you keep your spare key. They want to know which windows and doors are left open, right? Seems good. Seems pretty typical. It's also, IT or cyber threats are also like termites. They can lurk. They can linger silently. You have no idea that they're there, and they're doing massive damage that is going to take a lot of money to repair. It's kind of a bummer. It's also like those fake contractors, right? Grab a clipboard, put on a reflective vest, and you can go anywhere, especially if you have a hard hat on, right? So, phishing campaigns, right? All these emails that we get that purport to be somebody that they're not. Similar to this, right? So those are some kind of non-technical examples. Burglars, the challenge for IT is that for cyber burglars, we're trying to figure out, okay, where are all the doors and the windows and how to get all of those secured, except magically the doors and the windows and the locks change without us knowing. Right? The layout of the entire building can change without us knowing, and we still need to know how to protect it. Termites. Termites keep evolving. They find unique ways to break in, and they become resistant to poison, right? Very, very similar to the IT industry, right? It's whack-a-mole. The software manufacturers fix one problem, and the hackers find another problem, and they find their way in. They evolve. And then, with the fake contractor example, lots of people posing as trusted entities. Who is genuinely here to help? Do you guys know how to spot fake emails? You had training on that? Feel confident? Yeah, that is but one piece of security awareness and really raising the level of understanding, being able to see those things and understand why. We'll get there. One of the things I really want to make sure that you understand is we are in the middle of a revolution. And I'm not just talking about AI, although AI is accelerating things even more. I want to give you a little bit of history about how people have been allowed to use their machines and what happens when that happens. I equate the past to the Wild West. Somebody'd say, hey, thanks for coming, thanks for working here, it's your first day on the job, here's your computer, don't screw it up. Right? And you could do pretty much anything. You could install any programs that you wanted. You could go into any websites that you want. You can use the same password for everything. It was great. Oh my gosh, it was great. So easy. IT wasn't in the way. Those pesky insurance companies weren't in the way. And things were not as connected. Things were not as connected, right? Even in the days of, after 1995, when the internet really started to come alive, things were not as interconnected as they were today. So even if there were problems, they were probably more contained. And there wasn't social media, so you couldn't hear people go, oh my God, we got hacked, right? So people didn't know as much about it. And for the insurance companies, they hadn't yet realized what an amazing market opportunity they were about to experience, right? So the old days, it was a very different ballgame than it is today, or even leading up to today. But there wasn't cyber insurance at all. So I want to say up until recently, maybe even up until now, and there's a little bit of overlap, maybe even into the future a little bit, there's recognition that there's a problem, right? But there has been very little regulation, and really there's still very little regulation regarding the kinds of cyber threats that we're facing. There is going to be more, but there hasn't been a ton up until now. But there's been a bunch of stuff in the news. If you haven't heard about cyber attacks in the news, you have been burying your head in the sand, right? I mean, it is on the network news. It is in the alternative news. It is on the internet. Just about every day, you hear about some new cyber attack and about how some company either got all of their data taken, or their data exposed, or they had to pay a huge ransom, or they didn't pay a ransom, and it's everywhere. And believe me, in my industry, the kinds of research and the kinds of media that we expose ourselves to, literally it's daily multiple times a day. It's a little stressful sometimes. The FBI, IBM, Verizon issue annual threat reports that I don't know if they try to scare people, but we read that stuff and it's like, oh my goodness, to us it's scary. It's not my intention to scare you guys today. It really isn't. And I'm not going to put up a bunch of statistics from these organizations that say, oh my gosh, your hair's on fire, or it used to be on fire till it burned off, to get you to move into action. I don't think that works well, because that adrenaline of fear wears off, and then we're like, it's not that big a deal anymore. What I'm looking for is slow and steady. This is a marathon. There are government alerts and warnings. The FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, created regulation that I'm sure all of us are complying with to the T, right? No? Okay. California, the CCPA and the CPRA, regulations here in the state of California to try to protect people's data and give them rights around controlling it. There is plenty of actionable guidance from a variety of different agencies. The Small Business Administration has advice for us. The FTC, they say here's the regulations, but they also have advice, which is great. And then the Center for Internet Security, or the oh my God, I always get this wrong. It's not the Center for Internet Security, that's another body. It's the I'll get it right. The CISA, which is the governmental agency, the high-level governmental agency, which I believe is part of Homeland Security, that is really trying to counter state-level cyber threats. Okay, so there's not a ton of regulation, but there's a bunch of information. So why don't we do anything? Because I know. Don't try to tell me otherwise. I know that businesses, even though they know these threats exist, unless they absolutely have to, they're not going to take action. And believe me, I have talked to my clients till I am blue in the face about the need to implement certain kinds of cyber protections. And oftentimes, in spite of all of the evidence, in spite of all of the guidance from experts, and I'm not talking us as experts, I'm talking about outside bodies as experts, they do nothing, or they do very little. And it's frustrating, and it's getting to the point where it's a little bit dangerous and perhaps if you have a board of directors, it's irresponsible to your stakeholders not to take action. But people aren't going to do it until they absolutely have to. So what's the revolution? Verified compliance. Verified compliance. By whom, for what purpose? It's not like the government is going to come in and go, do you have managed detection and response as part of your antivirus? Do you have spam filtering? Do you, ticking down the list of technical things? That's not going to happen. But the insurance companies sure will. Why? Because they know, when they started issuing cyber insurance, and I want to say we've had cyber now in our industry 10 plus years. When they opened that up, the threats were not as great, the claims were not as great, and the premiums were delightfully low. And then the last 8 years happened. And I'm not sure about you guys, I know that my cyber insurance rates have tripled in that time. And they almost did it again. They almost doubled this past year. So this is not a function so much of governmental regulation as it is business going, hey, wait a second, we have a problem here. And I'm assuming that for those of you who are actively involved with assessing the risk chain of title, that you can relate to this. Because it's really a similar thing. It's assessing risk and figuring out, okay, the insurance company, from the insurance company's perspective, they're trying to figure out, do we want to make a bet on this transaction or on this business that they're doing what they need to do? So what's going to happen? There are ongoing rate increases in the cyber insurance industry. I'm assuming that is going to continue because cyber threats are not getting smaller, they're getting greater. They are going to have minimum requirements in order to issue cyber insurance policies. That's fun. Imagine if you don't pass their minimum requirements. You're either going to have to go to another carrier who has lower standards, or you're going to have to buck up and actually implement the things that the cyber insurance companies are asking you to implement. And interestingly, and this is going to be kind of a three-part or three directions of influence, if you will. The cyber insurance companies aren't making these requirements because of regulation. They're making it because of their economic interest, right? The government is doing this for the greater good, right? Trying to get people to take steps to make it better for everybody. And the IT industry is actually, like it or not, it's pretty aligned with the insurance industry. A little background. Companies like mine don't operate on an hourly basis. We generally don't say, hey, you have a problem, we're going to come and fix it, just call us when you need us and pay us hourly. Mature IT companies don't do that. Mature IT companies are a lot like HMOs or insurance companies, right? We provide a defined set of services for a fixed price. So our interest is actually almost exactly aligned with the cyber insurance company's interest. If the clients that we're dealing with are not willing to address their risk, they create risk for us, which is not good, right? So what companies like mine will do is something very similar to what the cyber insurance companies are doing, which is we will have a way of assessing the risk of a potential client. And if we think that the client poses too much risk, we're going to say, gosh, thank you so much for the opportunity. We suggest that you talk to so-and-so because it's just not the right fit for what we're doing, right? So businesses are starting to get put in a pickle because if they're not doing the right things to protect their business, number one, they're not going to be able to get insurance. And number two, their choices in terms of who they're going to work with from an IT perspective are going to be limited. and they're going to end up working with the less mature IT people, which gives them more risk, which means there's more likelihood that they're going to have some kind of cyber incident, right? So it's kind of a little bit of a vicious circle. But it's interesting to me the way that these different influences are changing the way that business leaders are making their decisions around IT. So there is a little bit of a difference between the way that larger companies are handled and smaller companies are handled. Typically, larger companies have larger exposures, larger losses. The cyber insurance companies are saying, you must have an assessment before we write our policy. Smaller companies, and I would say smaller meaning below 250 users, and that number is going to vary a little bit. Companies with fewer than that employees tend to have lower losses. Mostly it's just a matter of scale, although if you look from a percentage basis, it's not that much lower. So when you're evaluating risk in this way, you have to be careful and talk about the number of incidents versus the value of the incidents, or the percentage of the population that gets affected. The percentage is not that much lower, even with smaller businesses. It's just that the losses for them don't amount to the losses from the bigger clients. So what's happening is the cyber insurance companies are saying, we may require an assessment. And I've seen it happen, and we'll go there in just a moment, where the cyber insurance companies, even for smaller businesses, even for smaller clients, are requiring some kind of assessment before they'll issue a policy. All right. Insurance. Insurance companies love their exclusions. We're going to cover all of these amazing things for you. If you screw up in all of these amazing ways, which you probably will, we're going to cover you. Oh, except for you don't have the right security protocols in place. Interesting. It's number one reason why cyber insurance companies deny claims. Here's the part where I tell you about real-world experience dealing with cyber incidents and cyber insurance companies and the way that this goes, the way it goes down. Company realizes they have a problem. Either their IT company tells them they have a problem, or a user screws up and goes, it was me, I did it, I'm sorry. I oopsed. That kicks off a chain of events. We typically tell clients if we suspect something really bad has happened, first call is to your cyber insurance companies. Don't turn off anything. If you want to turn, actually, it's not true. If you want to turn off anything, turn off your internet connection. Do not turn off your computers. Do not turn off your computers. Call your cyber insurance company. Hello, cyber insurance company. I'm in an active cybersecurity situation. There's been an incident. I don't know what's going on. I need help. Cyber insurance company is going to assign you what's called a breach coach. Breach coach is a lawyer who is your lawyer, not the cyber insurance company's lawyer. It's assigned by them, but it's now your lawyer. That lawyer is now going to muster the resources that they think that you need to fight this threat, whatever it may be. They're going to get the digital forensics people, who I love and hate at the same time. They're going to bring in incident response companies. They're going to bring in, if you need, potentially PR companies. They're going to bring in other lawyers who are going to help with your reporting requirements, which are going to depend on what your industry is and how much data you have and what state you're in, right? So that's a lot of people. It's a lot of lawyers. And as you can imagine, it ain't cheap. Low end, if they determine, oh yeah, there actually is something going on and we need to really dig into it, low end is about 30 grand. Which, interestingly, is probably about the same amount as it would cost if you've had your title, if you've had your title frauded, if you've had your title stolen, right? The cost for an attorney to get that taken care of is probably starting somewhere in that neighborhood if you're lucky, unless it's something super quick. So cyber incidents are not cheap. And if you don't have cyber insurance, oh man. We have one company, one client, they were kind of just coming on. They had chosen to use a brand of antivirus that we had advised them not to use, that we didn't think it was sufficient. They had a relatively major incident where they were infiltrated. Fortunately, we were able to pull the plug and they didn't have any data taken, but we had to reload about 80 machines in 3 days. And there was a bunch of forensic stuff that had to happen. Their bill was over $125,000, right? And that wasn't even that big a deal. So the key here is the cyber insurance thing is, in my opinion, it's one of the biggest things that's driving this. Because business owners realize, holy smokes, if we have an incident, we're toast. We're toast. I have seen statistics that say companies that experience a major cyber incident are like 60% of them, and this, I'm not talking about enterprise, I'm talking about smaller businesses. 60% of them within a year, bye-bye. They just can't weather it. They can't weather it financially. They can't weather it reputationally. They can't weather it from the standpoint that they're trying to figure out how to make that money back. They raise their prices. They can price themselves out of their markets. It's not good. So what are the other kinds of things that cyber insurance companies will deny claims for? Internal bad actors. You haven't screened your people properly. A human misconfiguration. What that means is your IT people probably haven't done their job making sure that things are configured the proper way and that the users can't do it. Why? Because the users can't be trusted. Come on. They didn't follow compliance procedures, or they're not reporting an incident to the cyber insurance company first. It's your first call. It's your first call. Get them involved from the get-go if something is going sideways from a cyber perspective. Lack of compliance to well-defined standards is no longer an option for most businesses. Sure, you can go there. You can try to surf that wave as long as you'd like. But the level of risk associated with doing it that way, I'm telling you, I've been in business for 20 years. I'm a small business owner. That just, when I hear, I was actually shocked. We did a whole bunch of different stuff in April. We raised our prices a little bit. We added additional cybersecurity functionality. And one of the things that we began requiring was that our clients have cyber insurance. Why? Because if they don't have cyber insurance and something bad goes wrong, guess who they're pointing the finger at? Right? So it's like, You insure you, I insure me, and we're both going to be better off, but you got to do it. So I will tell you, if I have either an existing client or a prospect, and in that beginning conversation, the initial conversation, they say, no, we don't need that. We're not going to do that. That for me, conversation stopper, full on. There's just no way. All right. So there's the financial part of this, but there's also the cultural part of this. And really what we're trying to build is a culture of security awareness. Is it clear kind of what the motivation is? Even though it's a pain in the butt, can you understand now why IT companies are saying, no, you got to do this? And IT departments are freaking out, and in some cases executives are freaking out because they're like, I'm sorry, my cyber insurance is going to cost how much? Right? I have seen smaller companies where it's in the couple grand a year. IT companies, it's not unusual to find it in the $10,000 to $20,000 range. Companies that are in the financial services industry and that are 200 plus are probably looking at $25,000 to $30,000 a year. Right? So it's not chump change. It's not the end of the world. It's not chump change. I'll tell you what, it is a lot less expensive than dealing with a cyber attack, especially given the team that you have. So, organization-wide security awareness training. How many of you at your work, in your workplace, are compelled to do security awareness training online on a regular basis? Outstanding. So, if you just had your hand raised, please leave it down. For the rest of you, is anybody doing any in-person training? In-person security awareness training? Okay. Now I'm scared. So this is great. It's kind of bad news, good news, right? Bad news is it's not happening yet. Good news is, hey, you learned something today. Sweet, right? Security awareness training is actually an inexpensive and really easy way to go. And what kinds of things can you learn? You can learn how to spot phishing emails. You can learn how to spot the signs of cyber attack. You can learn about the kinds of human factors that result in cyber attacks. Anybody like to go to Las Vegas? Go stay at the MGM or Caesars? Yeah, was it 3 weeks ago? MGM got hammered. How? Hi, my name is Zach. Yeah, I'm in IT, and I forgot my password, or my multi-factor authentication on my phone is messed up. Can you help me reset that? Yeah, I know, it's just crazy. Can you believe the weather today? It's really great. Yeah, I want to go out to Red Rocks and go for a ride. It's going to be great. Sure, I can hold. The help desk reset their password, and the people got in that way. It wasn't even a sophisticated, crazy attack. They looked on LinkedIn, they found somebody who worked in IT at MGM. Then they did their other research. They probably looked on Facebook and Google and figured out who the person was, because they love posting about their life. And they were able to convince the help desk person that they were somebody that they weren't, and they were able to get administrative access to things, move laterally, because they had administrative access, they could get to other systems. Game over. MGM was hurting, right? They were down. They were giving people physical keys to rooms. Yay. They weren't able to take credit cards for room service or run their slot machines for like a week. So she's saying when she was standing in line to check into the hotel or to do things at the hotel, you either had to have cash, or they would write down your credit card information, because we all know that is completely compliant with the credit card issuer's wishes. No problems there. I'm sure that they shredded all of those into confetti after that was done too. Holy smokes. All right. Oh, we're doing good. All right. Organization-wide security awareness training is absolutely key. If it is not happening in your organization, I would suggest that you request it. Request it. It's going to blow your management away. If you own a company and you're not doing it, I'd be really curious to hear why. During Q&A, I'd be really curious to hear why that's not happening. But what this does is it drives behavior. And this is really what we're looking for, is we're trying to instill in leadership teams, in management teams, in operational teams, the behaviors that lower risk, right? It's not just one thing, and it's not just technology, which we're going to find out, right? It's kind of like in fraud prevention. Right, I'm sure all of you know that if you're in fraud prevention, that you're out of a job because AI is going to do everything. No, it's not. Never. Never, never, never. If the humans are involved, then we've got to be trained properly and we've got to behave properly. And in my opinion, and I know that it is in my company, it's a condition of employment. It is not optional. And if you don't want to play along, and you don't want to do your weekly security awareness training or monthly security awareness training, or you're clicking on the phish emails and when you shouldn't be, because we send phish tests out because we're sneaky that way, and you're clicking on those things and it's obvious that you're not learning, then either you got to do something, we have to do something remedial to bring these people up to speed, or they got to go because they're a huge risk. If they're not willing to do that, they're not willing to play ball. So let's talk about risk management. Would you buy a home in a wildfire zone in the state of California if you couldn't get it insured? Did I mention I'm from Santa Rosa? right? I have several friends who've tried to buy in the rebuild zone, in the burn zone. And it's brutal. It's absolutely brutal. And some of them have gone, nope, not going to do that. By the same token, would you stay in business if you could not get cyber insurance for your business? I'm shocked at how many businesses, that was my point earlier, I'm shocked at how many businesses still don't have cyber insurance. I'm shocked. There are still some out there, people willing to roll the dice. Not a game I'm willing to play. Why are the cyber insurance applications, why are they asking all of these questions? Those are real applications from my clients. And of course, they come to us and say, what is encryption? What is managed detection and response? Are our backups air-gapped, right? So they come to us and we help them fill out their cyber insurance applications, but why are they asking those questions? Because they're evaluating your risk, right? Before they underwrite you, they want to know, are you worth it? Coalition Cyber, one of the largest cyber insurance companies in the US. This is from their now 2-month-old 2023 mid-year update. Funds transfer fraud severity spiked. Why? Because people fall for phish emails all the time. It's crazy. It is one of the most preventable things, and yet people do it. What this is showing is, on the left, the frequency hasn't changed that much. The severity went down for a year, and now it's on the way back up. Right? And that's because phishing is easy. It's tried and true. There are companies out there that will train you how to send phish emails and defraud people out of money. It's great. Entire industries devoted to this, people. I am not kidding you, right? Industries that have tech support for the fraudsters. It's unbelievable. But that's why that's happening. That is why that's happening. I was already told you, companies like mine are also evaluating risk. And if the prospective clients don't match the risk profile that we're willing to tolerate, we just don't do business with them. All right, what needs to be protected? This is a very important slide. It's a very, very, very important slide. It doesn't seem like it. There are only 5 words on it, besides the ones at the top. But this is all the stuff that's involved in IT, everything. This encompasses everything. People. Because we have very poor cyber hygiene. Devices, networks, apps, and data. People, the people who are actually using the computers. Devices, computers, tablets, smartphones, Apple TV, Google TV, Sonos, Sirius XM, Google Dot, Ring, all the devices. Networks, as I was talking about earlier, here, there, everywhere. Apps, these are the programs that you're using at work, on your phone, on your laptop, all the different kinds of applications that get used. And data, and I separate data and apps because data lives in a variety of different places. Data lives within your scope of control, and data lives outside your scope of control. Who here uses a third-party program like, let's say QuickBooks Online? Any QuickBooks Online users? Couple, smattering, right? Who has control of your data? Intuit will do the best they possibly can to let you know that you have control of your data, but it's in their data center on their systems. Fortunately, they have their SOC compliance in place, fairly decent. But there are a bunch of other applications out there, I can guarantee you, I'm pretty sure even some in your industry, where the providers of those applications do not have their SOC 2 compliance. Which means they're not doing those things that I was talking about either to protect your data in their cloud. Whoa. part of a complete information security policy within a business is evaluating your vendors, making sure that they're complying with the same kinds of things that we're supposed to be complying with. And if you are giving these companies who have not done their homework and their due diligence and their compliance work with your clients' sensitive data, you may have a problem. This is where, and I'm not saying yank that from your vendor. Go to your vendor, make sure that they have the compliance that they need in place. They should have a security policy that they can share, or a security statement they can share with you about what their posture is and what they're doing to improve it if it's not where it needs to be yet. There are a lot of them out there. In the legal industry, there is a major player in legal document management that is not SOC 2 compliant. Oh my gosh, people. So these are the 5 things that need to be protected. When we talk about, there's a buzzword that you're going to hear about in the industry called zero trust. It used to be, is that my next slide? Yep, here we go. Zero trust. The old paradigm was trust but verify, right? People are generally going to do the right thing. It's okay. And every once in a while, we need to check and make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do. Those days are gone. Those days are gone. Now it's about zero trust. Zero trust. What does it mean? It means with respect to those 5 things I was talking about on the previous slide: people, devices, networks, apps, and data, don't trust them. Only give them access to the things that they require access to. And that is something, how do we know how to do that? It's kind of it's a multi-part process. The people who are the experts in their business need to understand their workflows. They need to understand their vendors. They need to understand where the data is going, and then work with their IT departments or their outsourced IT to set up the kinds of policies that restrict access to that data. Okay? Without that, it doesn't happen. So IT can't do it alone. It's really going to rely upon the help of the people who know what the business processes are. Boy, this is a fun one. The key here, how do we protect ourselves? It's about implementing safeguards and controls. I'm going to blow through this part of the presentation because we could go way down into the weeds, and we can go there in the Q&A if you want to. But this is where we're going to talk a little bit about the safeguards frameworks, and there are a couple of them. But basically what's going on is this is a set of instructions that have been developed by outside bodies, either by NIST, National Institutes of Standards and Technology, or organizations like CIS, the Center for Internet Security, or other governmental agencies in other countries where there are various versions of these frameworks. But basically the idea is these are best practices that experts have gone, hey, if we're really going to run things well, this is what we need to do. Okay? And so what happens is IT companies go, hey, that's a great idea. Let's implement standards. We want to standardize across our client base because that actually makes our job a little bit easier, but it also keeps our clients safer. But what leaders hear is, well, IT is telling us that we have to do this, and this is just, it's too expensive. I don't want to do this. And it's like, whoa. We're the messenger. Let's be clear. We're the messenger. Yes, I am the one here today telling you that you need to be mindful and raise your awareness as it applies to cybersecurity. But I didn't make up the rule. I've got the cyber insurance carriers on one hand saying people got to be protected, we're not going to do business with them. And then we've got the standards body on the other hand saying, there's a better way. There's a better way to stay secure. And we can do this as a community. We don't need to do this all individually, either as IT companies or as business owners or as employees of businesses. It's up to all of us. We all have our role in doing this. So this is a coalition quote from their 2023 cyber claims report, security controls are more than just incentives or recommendations. They're meaningful mitigation tactics that can help businesses reduce the risk of cyber attack. Okay, very plainly spoken. There is a company called Delinea, and they are a manufacturer of security-related software. It does privilege management. And they surveyed their client base. They had divided between about 50-50 between organizations smaller and larger than 250. They say the most common cyber insurance exclusion, lack of security protocols in place. Insured organizations are often required to meet certain protocols, such as implementing specific security controls or safeguards, regularly updating software and systems, or conducting employee training. Imagine that, right? So the cyber companies are saying, companies who do this, what Coalition is saying is their clients who actually implement the stuff they're supposed to implement have lower claims. Shocker, right? It totally makes sense. It's going to cost more money because you have to spend money on the people to manage the process. You have to spend money on the people who are actually doing the implementation, but it's going to save money on the back end. And I know that it's challenging. Believe me, I know that it's challenging, but it's got to be done. All right. These are 5 pillars of any cybersecurity framework, this is what we live by. This is totally what we live by. But before we do this, does anybody remember the 5 things that we're trying to protect in a zero trust environment? Anybody? Anybody want to take a stab? The 5 things, those 5 important words that were on that page by themselves. Raise your hand, raise your hand, raise your hand. Ma'am, right there. Fantastic. And you, for your trouble in remembering it, very well done. You get the Mickey Mouse ears. Please come up and claim your prize whenever you should like. I hope that you have a lovely time in Disneyland. Excellent. People, devices, networks, apps, and data. That's one of the 5 things I want you to remember. And then this is the other one. Identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. Those are the 5 steps. Identify means inventory everything. All your devices, all your vendors, all your employees, all your data. Who should have access to what? What are the protections that are in place? It's a huge inventory. It is not a small task. It is one IT companies are particularly well suited in helping you with, but they can't do all of it because the inventory of what you have related to cybersecurity actually goes beyond your actual cyber infrastructure. It goes into your processes and your policies around your business. Okay? Protect. This is, what do we do? What are the actual both policies from paper policies, written policies within the business, as well as policies that can be implemented in a computer environment to protect your data? Okay? So that's where the protection comes. Detect, this is all the monitoring, right? When companies like mine say, we're going to monitor your systems 24/7, right? We do that. We also do things like, anybody use Microsoft 365 for their email service, right? So we have a piece of software that can detect if somebody logged in as you someplace that they shouldn't have. Impossible login. If somebody had logged into your account and set up forwarding rules, because that's usually one of the first signs of an attack, we can alert on that. So it's those kinds of things. Detection. Responding is what happens in the event of an attack. What are the actions that you take? And that response is determined by a plan, and that plan needs to be thought of in advance, and it needs to be practiced. It needs to be shared, and it needs to be practiced. Because if you don't, then the last thing, the recover, that's recovering from an attack, that can take a long time. So the whole idea is be responsible for what you have. Know what you have, protect it, put measures in place to make sure that we can see if something bad is happening. Have a plan and be ready to implement that in order to recover quickly. So this is great. This sounds wonderful, right? You just put all this stuff together. It only takes probably about 2 years, typically, start to finish. To get a working first version of all of that together is typically about a 2-year journey, unless you really put your nose to the grindstone, hire an outside company, compliance company, and get this stuff done. It takes a long time to get these things done. So who's keeping an eye on making sure that IT companies are doing their job in helping companies do this stuff? The insurance companies. The insurance companies have scans that they'll put in place. Coalition has one. This is what Coalition's looks like. Very helpful. That's one of our clients. They have a 39 risk score. We're in the green. Woohoo! It means we're doing our job. With this other company, we have a 73. The Coalition scores it, the lower the better. At Bay, this other insurance company, when they scan our client system, the higher that number is, the better. So we're at a 73. Not awesome, but getting there. This was the preliminary one that wasn't exactly right, so the number's actually higher, I promise you. But they're keeping an eye on us. Okay, so what's your role? What's your role? The thing to be clear about is, business owners in the room, your IT company, if you have an outside IT company, does not own your compliance. You do. You do. You're responsible for it. You're responsible for making sure that you are compliant, doing whatever you need to do, managing whatever effort there is, but you own it. And here's the thing. Here's my ask to you is commit to making progress. You don't have to do the whole thing, but at least commit to making progress and getting going on it so that you're at least not in a position where you don't even know what you don't know. You need to identify some key people. I'm gonna zip through this because I think that I want to make sure that there's time. FTC safeguards is the big one for you guys in your industry. My understanding is you are subject to FTC safeguards rule. They have a number of things which are relatively rigorous. The good thing is there's a fairly decent overlap between what the safeguards rule asks you to do, compels you to do, and what the other cybersecurity frameworks contain. So there's definitely an overlap in that Venn diagram. They're not completely overlapped, but a lot of it is. And so if you want to see the rest of this part, because I've got a bunch of resources, I'll just talk about this here real quick. You need to designate somebody who's going to be in charge of the process, perform a risk assessment, and then you've got a bunch of different items that you need to do to put together your plans and be compliant with the safeguards rule. I have included a boatload of resources in the deck. So if you want the deck, there'll be instructions at the end here about how to get it. But the key here is just get started. Just get started. And even if you are not in a position where this is in your line of accountability, go look at it. Go read up on the FTC safeguards rule. You may be a little bit surprised. And there may be some areas where you find in your scope of job responsibility that there are things that you can do to minimize the company's risk. And I'm not sure exactly how it works in your industry if there are positions where you may actually have some personal liability in some of these situations, but if you do, good stuff to be aware of to raise your level of education. All right. Do IT organizations really help in preventing fraud? The pithy answer is no, not really. It's not entirely true. It's a little bit too pithy. The answer is yes, but not by ourselves. The things that we do to help prevent fraud. Number one, we can help prevent business email compromise. This is people breaking into your email system and pretending that they're you, and then starting a phishing campaign against somebody else, making it look like you. We can either prevent it outright or detect it within literally minutes and stop it cold so it doesn't actually happen. Encrypting sensitive communications and securing portals and secure portals for email, that's absolutely something we can provide. Again, we're providing the vehicle but we're not doing the heavy lifting, I don't think. Single sign-on is a thing that says, okay, we're going to give you one ID, and you're going to use that same ID to log into a bunch of different systems. And if you leave the company, we're going to turn off that one ID, and your access to everything else is gone, right? Which is super duper duper convenient. So it's not like, oh my gosh, you're using 12 different systems. We need to turn off 12 different systems. And during that time, between the time you found out that you were fired, and we were able to turn that system off, you were able to get in and do some damage, right? So. Single sign-on is really is helpful. And then privileged access management. This is the who has administrator access to different kinds of things, whether it's applications or whether it's systems in your or networks in your company. We can help manage that. But the real heavy lifting for fraud prevention and fraud detection, as you guys know, you're probably already using AI tools or computer algorithms to help you detect fraud, but oftentimes the final arbiter of that is you. And I don't see that going away anytime soon. I don't think it's really reasonable to think that that's going to happen. Talking about especially with respect to electronic funds transfer, this is where that is where the rubber meets the road, and having training, which it is my understanding that is an ongoing thing in your industry. There's ongoing training for detecting funds transfer fraud, FTF, and if there isn't, I would be shocked. Okay, last part, but before we begin, what are the 5 common elements of any security controls framework? We already talked about what are the 5 things that need to be protected, right? The people, the devices, the data, people, devices, networks, data, and apps. But what are the 5 things, 5 elements of a...
Identify, detect, respond.
Well, that is absolutely correct. So now, please, more ears, please. You're welcome to come up and get these. I know, right?
So fabulous.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you. I told you it was going to be a Mickey Mouse presentation. I swore I wasn't going to use that line, but come on. Okay, AI, friend or foe to the financial services industry. Number 1, I am not an AI expert, but I have seen how it can be used for good and for bad. And my opinion is based on my practical experience and as a technology enthusiast, not as a person with lots of letters after their name. AI is a friend. Credit decisioning and identifying suspicious transaction, doing that first pass, it's really good at doing that. It's probably pretty good at helping you on title searches, right? Especially because we know that all of the title data is completely up to date, right? The county recorders get that stuff turned around like that. Well done. Thank you. Appreciate that. That was really working for that line. And in general business activities, things like the first drafts of communications. Anybody using ChatGPT or Bard or any of those for first drafts? And you edit them before you send them, right? Absolutely. Excellent. Brainstorming ideas or doing presentation outlines. I won't lie. It didn't write my presentation, but I absolutely used ChatGPT for certain parts of the presentation, either for clarity or for, analogies. Oh my gosh. Fantastic. Huge time saver. AI is a foe. All right, sound guys, you ready for me? Deepfake, that's probably one of the things that you guys have been hearing the most about. It's been big in the news. This is super fun. Let's watch this.
Goodness,
you want
for
that? There you go.
Indeed. Boy.
I'll just polish you up there.
While you're dealing with my head, can I get something off my chest?
Oh, yeah, go ahead, yes.
When you meet somebody who does something really stupid or nerdy or pathetic.
Does this involve me for any reason?
Yes, it does. And they act like a jerk, and you think, how could somebody be such a jerk?
Yeah.
Well, you are looking at the jerk, because just before the show started, I was on the phone calling home, and Conan, very nicely, politely, because not all hosts do this, came into the dressing room to say hello, and I took the telephone away, thrust it into his hand, and said, here, talk to my wife. I can't believe that I did that, and I apologize.
She was very charming, and we're hooking up later on.
I love Conan. The following took about 8 minutes. See if you can recognize.
Goodness
you want
for
that? There
yeah,
you go.
Indeed. Why?
Just polish you up there.
While you're dealing with my head, can I get something off my chest?
Oh, yeah, go ahead, yes.
You know when you meet somebody who does something really stupid or nerdy or pathetic?
Does this involve me for any reason?
Yes, it does. And they act like a jerk.
So that took no time at all. That took no time at all. Not that big a deal, not of huge concern, because it, might have been Patrick Stewart's voice, but it was my lovely face, right? So not hugely useful. But what about if you can change the face and voice? Check this out.
Hello, my name is Frank McKenna. I'm the Chief Fraud Strategist with Point Predictive, and I've been working in fraud management for the last 30 years, and I can tell you I have loved every minute of it. Now, I'm a fraud fighter just like you, and I started my career as a fraud analyst and an investigator working at banks like Wells Fargo here in California. Bonjour, je suis Frank McKenna, stratège en chef de la fraude chez Point Predictive, avec 30 ans d'expérience en gestion de la fraude. J'ai adoré chaque minute de cela. Je suis maintenant un combattant de la fraude, tout comme vous. J'ai commencé ma carrière en tant qu'analyste de la fraude et enquêteur dans des banques comme Wells Fargo en Californie. Hola, me llamo Frank McKenna. Soy el estratega principal de fraude de Point Predictive y llevo 30 años en la gestión de fraudes. Y puedo decirte que he amado cada minuto de ello. Ahora, soy un luchador contra el fraude, al igual que tú. Y comencé mi carrera como analista de fraude e investigador en bancos como Wells Fargo en California.
It is startling. It is absolutely amazing how realistic it looks. Okay, great. So doing the stuff in advance, creating these deepfakes in advance, not that sexy. But what if you could do it live? What if you could do it live? It's no surprise to me that SB 696 in California for remote online notary is going nowhere, right? It's approved, and they're going to implement it in January of 2030. Whee! Right? This is an article on the American Land Title Association website in January of 2021. January of 2021. Making convincing deepfakes takes significant resources and time, not to mention extensive visual data. The multi-factor authentication requirements in a remote online notarization transaction create additional layer of protection beyond the usual visual identification of a signer, making deepfake use very impractical for would-be fraudsters. And then in December of the same year, a high-level guy in a security company in the US says, though still in early stage development, deepfake videos will become problematic as processing performance becomes both more powerful and cheaper. The bar for creating these deepfakes will also be lowered through the commercialization of advanced applications. These could eventually lead to real-time impersonations over voice and video applications that could pass biometric analysis. The possibilities are endless, including the elimination of voice prints as a form of authentication. Our best defenses currently are zero trust access that restricts users and devices to a predefined set of assets and integrated security strategies designed to detect and restrict the impact of an attack. What's that sound like? Security control framework, right? This is not rocket science. It's a pain in the butt, right? Who here loves compliance in any way, shape, or form, right? It's a pain. It's not very fun. It's a lot of detail, and it's not great. Okay. I I apologize, I got long-winded, and we don't have a whole lot of time for Q&A, but we do have some time. So, if you have a question, would you please approach the microphone, one of the microphones on either side, and I'm going to take down a couple of questions. We'll answer whatever we can in the time remaining. So, please, not everybody all at once. All right.
Good morning.
Good morning.
If I missed it, can you tell us what a tripwire is? It was in one of your slides, but I
What is a tripwire? I have not talked about tripwires.
Thank you.
A tripwire is a piece of software. So, you know, a real tripwire is, right? It's a piece of wire that's put across a path so that if somebody goes by, it snags their foot and they fall down. And it makes it really easy to go, there's somebody on the path. A tripwire in an IT environment is much the same. It's a piece of software that is used to detect when the environment has changed. Right? And so there are a variety of different ways of doing that, but in essence, in its kind of most basic form, that's what a tripwire is.
So would that be something like you could set your system so that if someone did infiltrate and forward your emails, you would be notified?
So there are a variety of different kinds of tripwires. There's no one.
As an example.
Sure. So we set tripwires. It's not exactly tripwires. It's the idea is detection, right? Identify, protect, detect, respond, recover. It's about detection and being able to detect when certain kinds of things have changed. Has an application been installed? Has somebody logged into your email account? Has somebody set up a forwarder? They're trying to act as you. Has somebody logged into one of your accounts from a place that they shouldn't be able to log in? Has your multi-factor authentication been reset without your knowledge? Right? Is somebody accessing files that they shouldn't be accessing? Right? All of those kinds of things, all of those kinds of detections can be put in place. Did that answer your question?
Thank you. Yes.
You're welcome. Please.
Hi, on one of the slides that said buzzword check, never to trust that. Can you explain that?
So, sorry, the buzzword is zero trust. The buzzword is zero trust. It is a word or a phrase that you are going to start hearing more and more. And it's not that it's, the thing that I would encourage you to do is don't take it personally. Zero trust is not about like, well, we're not trusting you specifically. It's no, IT, from an IT perspective and from an applications perspective, we're not trusting anybody from anywhere. We're going to make sure that we want to identify who you are. And once we're convinced of who you are, then we're going to let you have access to that thing you're allowed to have access to, but nothing more. So what we're trying to do is keeping people from going on phishing, F-I-S-H-I-G, phishing expeditions, right? Getting into an IT environment. I don't know if you guys ever used to do this. Back in a previous life, I was a programmer, and we had received a piece of software on a CD, on a read-write CD from a very reputable software company, and we were to install that software on multiple systems. And I was just kind of looking through. I went on a fishing expedition on the CD, and I found that there was a folder on that CD that had photographs that should not have been on that CD. So ideally what happens is you're restricted to the environment that you should have access to. You have everything that you need to do your job and nothing more. And nothing more. Thank you. Please.
I wanted to talk today because we're seeing these wires or these cyber theft, the funds are going to the wrong place. So the industry, maybe after the funds are released from the bank, or call the person who's supposed to receive the funds, verify it, and next day that the person who's supposed to get the funds did indeed receive the funds. So we need to do that for a large amount of the funds that's going out of the bank, because we verify when you deposit and that it went into the deposit, but we never really verify the funds that are going out. So I think it's important for this industry to make sure that the funds that are outgoing wire or anything that's going out, call the bank or call the person and make sure they got the funds next day, not wait till the end of the month and you found out the funds were released to somebody else.
Yep, that's great. That's having a well-defined funds transfer process is absolutely key.
Yeah.
Because one of the things you're mentioning, if it is detected in a short amount of time, it's easier to do a clawback of those funds. After a certain amount of time, right? You're done.
Yes.
You're done.
So that's why I think the industry needs to change the procedures and make sure that the rightful person indeed get the funds. And so we need some sort of a verification process where the person who's getting the funds make a phone call and say, did you get this fund? And if they didn't, then you could do something about it the next day.
Exactly. Thank you very much.
Thank
right.
you.
And so I said that I wasn't going to speak on compliance that has anything to do outside of IT. That is a great point, and that is something that is a little bit outside the realm of IT. Awesome idea. I'm stand behind it fully. Did we get there?
We are there.
Hold on. Wait, what? One more. Who was our first question asker? Wait, we had no, someone from back over here, because you would have yours. We have one more set of ears. We have one more set of ears for you. So thank you for coming up and asking questions. It definitely makes it easier and more exciting for me. Thank you. Enjoy them. You bet. Oh, no.
CACHMESEL.
So, if you would like a copy of the deck, please scan that. I will get that to you as quickly as possible. There are a couple of other options there. If you want to have a conversation, you don't have time to have that right now here, please contact me. If you would like, I have a special offer for attendees of the presentation, or the attendees of the conference. If you would like a 20-point cybersecurity assessment for your organization, I will do that for you for free. Or if you'd like to have a consultation about your business and the cybersecurity posture, I will do that for free. You can find that all by going to that QR code, give me your contact information, and I will get back to you as quickly as possible. Otherwise, thank you guys very much. I appreciate the fact that you guys stayed awake through all that.
Thank you, Zach, for a very informative presentation. On behalf of the California Escrow Association, we would like to thank you for being a 2023 annual conference speaker. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.